Welcome to the Business of Black Business, a 30-minute talk show that interviews Black entrepreneurs and advocates for Black businesses. The topics of conversation include access to capital, best business practices, success stories, and more. Now introducing our host, Jay Reynolds.
Hello, my name is Jay Reynolds, and I own and operate Wolf Creek Consulting. We are an top-rated executive staffing firm located in South Florida with offices in West Palm Beach and Birmingham, Alabama. Now, this is the second installment of the Business of Black Business, number 0002. Now, what I want to do is a little bit of housekeeping first. I want to let people know that it's really important for me to let people know that this is not a commercial for Black businesses. It's not a bunch of commercials. This show is designed to help Black entrepreneurs and would-be Black entrepreneurs navigate through the kind of difficult in the landmines of starting and managing and owning a Black business. It's a unique opportunity to try to gain access to hear directly from successful Black business owners to find out how they did it, to find out what happened, to find out exactly what their pitfalls were, what their thought processes were, and really to be kind of in the room where it happens. Now, you ask yourself, why are we doing this? And there are two reasons why we're doing this, why it's important. Number one, and most importantly, FUBU. This is a show for Black businesses done by Black business owners. Now, although the doors are open to anybody who wants to participate and be a part of this show, this is a business done by Black business owners for Black businesses. 43% of Black-owned businesses shut down in 2020. That means that those businesses and that revenue is gone. Most of those businesses will never reopen. That's very important. Collectively, we have the resources to recover. We don't have to wait to make that happen. We can do better, and it's really important that if that happens, it's really up to us. The path to that recovery is access and education, meaning that the more you do, the more you know, the better you're able to do. Now, when I started my business some time ago, we pretty much operated in silo. There was not a whole lot of resources out there. There were really limited resources. The internet was limited. We had limited social media, but today we have almost limitless resources. We can help each other. We can do better, and we really, really and truly don't have to wait to make that happen. Now, today, we have a unique opportunity to interview literally the person who wrote the book on Black businesses, successful Black businesses. This person collected a bunch of stories from successful Black businesses and shared them with us through a book, a series. She was able to basically chronicle their successes, their journey, and to basically put that in a collective body of work that we can all appreciate. Now, we're also blessed to have two of those people that actually even wrote those stories themselves. And what I like about that more than anything else is that we're going to be able to hear their story through their eyes. They basically wrote those chapters. They're going to be able to tell us how it happened, when it happened, why, and give us that access and give us some of the pitfalls along the way. And hopefully all of us will be able to glean something from that, to learn something from that, to help to take our businesses from the next level. Now, I'm going to introduce first Dr. Mia Merritt. Now, she wrote the book, No Glory Without a Story. Now, what I'm going to do is read a little bit about her bio. Dr. Merritt has organized an amazing collection of stories. Each edition has a different focus. Outside of this series, Dr. Merritt has published 17 books on the subject of spirituality, personal development, prosperity, and self-empowerment. She is the CEO of Merritt Consulting, which provides services and education programs, curriculum development, conference speaking, staff development, and teen youth training. Now, first of all, Dr. Merritt, I really want to kind of defer to you, and we're going to talk to the speakers in just a second. But I want to thank you for your time. I know that you're a busy person and you have a lot going on, and you could have done anything today, but you decided to be here. So I really, really appreciate that. Secondly, thanks for seeing this as important. I want to say that again. Thanks for seeing seeing this as important. I think that it's really important that we chronicle our own history. If we don't chronicle our own history, somebody is going to record that history for us. So thank you for seeing this as important. Thank you for doing it. And with that, I want to introduce Marie Sorrell and Dr. Barbara Sharief. I'm going to introduce both those two guys. And guys, both you guys are household words. Everybody knows who you are in South Florida, and we certainly know that. However, it's going to be important to the people that don't necessarily know you or seen your body of work to get an idea about who you are. So first of all, Anne-Marie, please introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and give me a quick snippet as to why you are who you are.
Well, good morning, Jay. And first, I want to acknowledge and thank Dr. Mia Merritt for the opportunity to participate in this collective body of work and art and knowledge that we have embarked on and will be changing and empowering lives around the world with. So thank you. Marie Sorrell, I'm the president and CEO of the Mosaic Group, which is an award-winning advertising, marketing, and government relations agency based in South Florida. I am also the founder and president of Cannabisiac, which is a global cannabis ecosystem where we're educating entrepreneurs and professionals that want to tap into the $90+ billion global cannabis market. So those are my two ventures. And I'm also an elected supervisor for Palm Beach Soil and Water Conservation District, seat 2. And as many know, they've seen me here as the host with Lunch with Legacy Leaders every Thursday.
Have watched you for months.
Thank you. So shout out to MIA Media Group for having me as a host of that very important dialogue. But you know, who am I? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an author. And more importantly, I'm a person who my personal mission is to make an impact on the lives and change lives through the work that I do, whether it's through my marketing agency or through the body of work that I write, or through just the charities and the philanthropic work that I do in the community. It's all about making an impact. So that is my why every day that I wake up is how am I going to make change? How am I going to make an impact? How am I going to do good in this world?
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And again, we all know who you are, and we typically speaking, we all have followed your body of work for a long time, and proud of all you've done.
Thank you.
Dr. Sharief, same question. Tell me a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about your company, and tell me why you are who you are today.
So I am a doctor of nursing practice, 28 years in the healthcare profession. And I have a company called South Florida Pediatric Home Care. And that company provides care to medically complex children and adults. And what I mean by that is people who come straight from an intensive care unit setting to home. We take them home and set up the intensive care unit at home. And I provide around-the-clock nursing services. I have a little over 200 nursing employees right now that work between the two counties. And I built my business a little over 20 years ago with the help of my retired English teacher mother. And she, you know, I'm who I am today because of the two phenomenal parents I had, because I had a father who came from Montgomery, Alabama in the 60s with the dream to have his own business. My dad had no more than a 9th grade education, which I found out after he kept pushing me to go to college. And he built a women's clothing business and really gave me my entrepreneurial basis to start. And so I think that he shaped who I am and what I'm doing right now. And my mother kind of just, she was kind of the wind beneath my wings, just kept pushing me to just achieve everything that I'm supposed to.
Great. Hey, great. Well, I can tell you again, you both you guys are a household word here in South Florida. We all know who you are, and we have all followed your body of work for a long time and proud of the things that you've accomplished. So thanks very much for kind of sharing those thoughts, real talk kind of thoughts. All right, Dr. Merritt, we're going to start with you, right? Tell us a little bit about that I don't know about you and who you are, basically something different from the bio. And then we're going to launch into what made you write this book. Talk to me about that, huh? And because for me, that's extremely important.
Absolutely. First of all, I'd like to thank you for having me on your show. It is an honor, and I am humbled to have been asked. What you don't know about me, my background is in the field of education. So my educational background is in education, and I was a teacher, an administrator, a college professor, an educational consultant. So that's a little bit of what you don't know about me. And as far as what made me want to do this particular edition, because this is the third edition, and honestly, I was supposed to do it about 4 or 5 years ago. Was procrastinating, but in God's timing, everything is right on time. The series is called No Glory Without a Story, but all of the captions are different. So the first one was more spiritual. It was a sinner's journey to getting on the right track or something like that. And then the second edition was pastors. It was 20 South Florida pastors that wrote about the things that go on behind the scenes.
Wow.
And so this is the third edition, and this particular edition was brought out because of COVID-19, and everyone was basically confined to the house. A lot of businesses, as you know, Mr. Reynolds, were birthed out of COVID-19 because people were at home and they were forced, they were not busy, and they were actually forced to go into creativity,
right,
and ingenuity, and all of their desires and ideas that they had put on the back burner for various reasons, mainly for being too busy and not really having the time to embrace and nurture the ideas that they had had. This gave them an opportunity to actually bring their ideas into fruition. So because so many businesses were birthed during the COVID-19 quarantine, I said, you know what? This will be a really good time for those that have already established businesses and know what it's like to face obstacles and trials, and they know how to get over them. This book will help those new businesses,
right, exactly,
get the motivation and the impetus that they need and the hope that they need when they do face, you know, the downside of running a business. They can actually learn from the experiences and the wisdom of those that have been in business for a while, who have the trajectory and have the knowledge. This book will help them to sustain. So this is why I chose to do it at the time that I did.
Great. Well, I got to tell you, you know, first of all, COVID-19 was a disruptor for a lot of reasons,
Yes.
right? 43, like I said before earlier in my preamble here, the 43% of all Black businesses that have been around for, in many cases, generations, closed. And many of those businesses will never open back up. However, the double-edged sword side of that is that, just to the point that you just made, there are a lot of startups. There are a lot of Black-owned, minority-owned startups, hopefully, that will begin the process of filling that void, of filling that vacuum. Now,
Yes.
It's really important for us as business owners that have been around for a long time. My staffing firm has been around for 20 years. It's very important for us to be able to help those smaller companies, or help those companies that are basically starting, those startups, get to a place in time where they're self-sustaining.
Yes.
So this book, to the point that you made, is almost a reference book. It's like something that you go to the library to pull up, and you dial in, and you read a story about Marie Sorrell, or you read a story about Dr. Barbara Sharief, and you get an idea about, say, hey, look, I can take this punch to the stomach because she just told me she did. Right?
Absolutely. And they were very transparent. I mean,
yes.
Some of them talked about what it was like when they did not have enough money coming in to make payroll. One author talked about the fact that she had to borrow money from her mom, you know, just to be able to make payroll. One author said that she got a check just in time to make payroll. She went to the bank, and the bank told her they had to place a hold on it for 5 days.
Oh, yeah. Been there, done
Payroll was in 3 days. And she stood outside of the bank and she cried. So these authors were very, very transparent.
Yeah, which is a
They could
beautiful
tell the
thing.
real.
Yeah, real talk. And that's exactly what we're talking about, real talk. So in the interest of making sure that I spend time with everybody, I'm going to move on to
Absolutely.
okay, move on to Anne Marie. Why don't you talk to me a little bit about your business and a little bit about what drove you to bare your soul in this book?
Well, it's interesting because when Dr. Merritt reached out to me and she invited me to participate and she told me the title of the book. And I said to her, I said, wow, I had actually started outlining a book called Me, Myself, and E. And the E is for entrepreneurship. And the subtitle was the story behind the glory. And so when she said that, I was like, oh my God, I think we're in alignment, which I think Dr. Merritt said she'll help me finish that book. So this is kind of the precursor to the full book. But, you know, I've been in business for 17 years, started the Mosaic Group when I was 24 and fresh out of graduate school. Thought I knew everything about business just because I had an MBA. But, you know, what I had was a dream. And my story really starts with me being the 11-year-old entrepreneur, not really knowing I was an entrepreneur, but having 3 side hustles at 11 years old. And it's a tribute to my mom and just what she instilled in us, because she just wanted us to understand money and have a relationship with money and be able to buy the things that we want when she could not. As a single mother at the time. So that's how my journey started as far as my relationship with business and money. And I really take people through, in a very brief synopsis, what it was to not just start the business, but start the business with as little as $200 and a dream and a hope. I talk about partnerships that I had in the beginning and the successes, but also the learning that I learned from the lessons that I learned from having partners. I talk about the making something out of nothing. My business started literally right before the Great Recession. Mm-hmm. And for 4 years, we struggled, but to the outside world, we had to make the perception that we were still successful and we were thriving when everybody else was like, how? And sending resumes, but behind the scenes, it was a complete struggle. And, you know, there were different sacrifices and losses as a result along the way, from losing my first home that I had purchased to really having nowhere to live for months. And, you know, really hitting rock bottom, but still keeping my dream alive and, alluding to something I had read, thanks to one of my mentors, Ann McNeil, who's also an author of the book, and she's mentored many people. But one of the books that she had me read was Think and Grow Rich. And the one story in there was about, you know, not having a plan B, C, or D, but sticking to your plan A. And I stuck to my plan A because Mosaic had to be successful. It was the business that I had birthed. It was the business that I stepped out on faith to do. I gave up every other opportunity. My mom for 10 plus years didn't think I had a real job and kept saying, why don't you just go get a job? You have all these degrees. I'm like, I do have a job. I have a business that I created for myself and it will work. And so it's really about the staying power. It's about the persistence. It's about being consistent as well. I share the power of networking and relationships because that's really what helped.
Emily, I got to stop you for a second because there's a specific question I want to ask you. Okay. That's going to be really important to guys, people that are beginning the process and building the relationships. You talk in the book about how you begin the process of doing partnerships with people, and you would be a subcontractor with some of these groups. You would do the work, you would help them do the RFP, blah, blah, blah. You get your name on it, you become a subcontractor, and lo and behold, when the work got distributed, all of a sudden, you were hard to find. They couldn't contact you anymore. Your numbers didn't work. You know what I'm saying? Talk to us about that, because it's very important to people that are trying to align themselves with other practices or other businesses to basically say, hey, look, I'm gonna ride this person's coattail and they're gonna take care of me. but tell that story because I think it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Major part of my business growth. So first, I want to give, thanks to those who were mentors and provided opportunities for me to subcontract, especially when I was diving into the government contracting space. And, being a subcontractor, that's pretty much sometimes an absolute must in order for you to get your name out there, build your portfolio, and really build the business around what it is that you can do. But after doing that for so much time and then realizing that the very folks that I was partnering with was basically taking the lion's shares of the money, but we were doing the lion's shares of the work. And the money that was coming in realistically just was not sustainable for us as a company over time. So we had to make a shift and get the confidence and build a faith to say that we can step out and bid on this work ourselves as a prime contractor. And even that came with, some struggles. I didn't go into that in detail in the book, but even teaming sometimes, finding the right people with the right synergy that has the same values as you and your company is super important as well. So we've gone after several contracts. We won our very first big one as a prime, and we brought together other consultants that had very specialized areas, and that was great. And we worked very well together, and we actually was able to go after additional work with additional government agencies as a result. But it really took me saying enough is enough. We're no longer going to accept just being a subcontractor for the same work that these other firms are doing and just making little money, and we're producing better quality. We're running circles when it comes to ideas and strategy and production. Why can't we go for the big fish? Why do we have to sit here?
Let me stop you 1 second, because I have one last question I want to ask you, and it has to do with what one thing do you want your readers to take away from your chapter? Because I want to move on to Dr. Sharief here in a second. But what do you want people to take away when they read your chapter? At the end of the day, when they close that chapter and they move on to somebody else's story, what do you want them to be left with?
Well, at the end of the chapter, I give 7 tips, and it's actually chapter 7, which is my favorite number, 7. But out of the 7 tips, I end with the 4 R's. I'm just going to give one of the R's, which is resilience. I think my chapter really focuses on resilience. No matter what it is that you're going through, no matter the ups and downs, you have to be able to be resilient and have staying power. If your business is your dream and that's your plan A, then keep your plan A and focus on that and make it happen.
Well, that's I got to tell you guys, this is so cool. It is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I think we're going to go a little longer, and I'm just going to have to ask Dexter to forgive me, but I'm not going to miss the opportunity to be able to talk to you guys for as long as we can. So we'll probably go a little longer. So I'm going to ask you one last question, and we're going to move on to Dr. Sharief.
Yes.
When you were writing this chapter, what were your feelings about doing this? And what I mean by that, I know that's kind of a strange question, but what I'm saying is, as you were writing this, was it cathartic? Was it I'm gonna try to share my feelings with the world? Was it I'm going to try to save somebody from stepping on a landmine? Tell me what were you feeling when you wrote your chapter?
I felt that I wanted to be as transparent as possible. I wanted it to be authentic as well. I'm all about making sure people get the real deal. Entrepreneurship is not for everyone.
No, it's not.
And it takes real grit. It takes real risk taking. It takes a lot of strength and self-motivation. And I wanted people to understand the real of that. And that is, again, the glory that you see when we're out here on the outside. You don't understand the blood, sweat, and tears sometimes that we go through on the inside. And I just wanted people to really understand that there are great rewards, but there are also great risks and great challenges and sacrifices to reap those rewards. And they don't come overnight. That's why the resiliency is so important. 17 years in business, there's been lots of ups and downs, and I'm sure Dr. Sharief can can attest to that. You, Jay, can attest to that. Dr. Merritt as well. So just really, thinking of the entrepreneur in mind, especially our newer entrepreneurs. This is a new age. Entrepreneurs and the thinking of this newer generation of entrepreneurs is not like when we were entrepreneurs. We didn't have social media. We didn't have all the things that they have at their fingertips. So it appears very easy to many people because of social media and the glamour of social media. And when they really take a deep dive and people are jumping out in this journey and they have literally no business training, no business knowledge sometimes, and they're jumping out here in this journey and they just really don't know what they're embarking upon. So just keeping it real with them.
Right. Okay. Well, I will tell you this, that there's a thing that talks about the fact that entrepreneurs have to have a hard head. You have to have a hard head because you're going to get punched in the face a lot. So the bottom line is that there's no, you hear these stories about these guys that are going to start building these businesses. I'm going to build a business. I'm going to be a gazillionaire, right? Not before being punched in the face and the stomach a whole lot of times, right? So if you don't have a hard head or you can't take a punch to the stomach, trust me, go to work for somebody else because you will not survive in this life. But thank you very much, Anne-Marie. That was actually very, very real. Thank you. And very thought-provoking. I appreciate it. Dr. Sharief, let's move on to you. Okay. Let's talk about who you are. Talked a little bit about, you've talked a little bit about that already, but tell me a little bit more about your business. Help us to understand your business a little bit better. And then let's talk about why you do the things you do.
So first of all, let me just say that I had my fair share of years in corporate America working for home health care companies that were national. And I think one of the things that, like true entrepreneurs do is you have to break free from that. You have to break free from working for somebody else. And when you do it, you have to be doing something that you love. And I had this job where I had the most profitable nursing healthcare location of any of their 90 locations in the United States.
Wow.
I began this journey of plane travel to all the other places for them to help to make non-profitable businesses profitable. And I got to this point, where I was just soul searching because I wasn't happy. This is a job where I walked in the door. They had accounts receivables backed up of $14 million. And I sat at a desk for 3 weeks when I started this job, and I collected about $7 million of it. And I remember getting my first paycheck. And when I got my first paycheck, I just expected that I would have a bonus in there somewhere.
Yeah, right? Yeah. 1% of that 7 million, right?
Something. And my boss at that time brought the check up to me and handed it to me with both of her hands and said, "You earned every penny of this." And when I got the envelope, I was like, "Yeah, man,
here we go.
Something good." I'm like breaking free. I'm gonna buy a bigger house. And I opened up the envelope, and it was just my 2 weeks' pay.
Yeah,
and it was like that moment when you just say to yourself, "Listen, that's it. I'm not doing this." I couldn't, one, sit there and train my boss. Number two, I wasn't going to keep working for that knowing what my worth was.
Right.
Because there was nobody that was going to come in there and do what I've done. So I got up, and it was a Friday when they gave me that check, and I left on Friday. And then
that's a great story. That's a great story. We all have that whole corporate America, see you later, bye, peace, right? We all have that peace thing. I got to talk to you though, because this is really important. We haven't talked about this on my first show or the second show so far, so I'm going to talk about this, and you guys are both good people to talk about it. Matter of fact, I've gone to a couple of your presentations where I'm sitting in a room when you presented a couple of times where you talked about the need to be financially astute. I want you to talk about it. There's a section in the book that you talk about the fact that you went to banks and they found you to be unbankable, and we all been there. So there ain't no shame in that. I'm just saying that. Talk to us about the story I mean, about your banking ability, bankability, and how you've overcome those things, and the need to be able to understand the finances and to get yourself to a point in time where you can actually talk to somebody, a banker, and make things happen.
So first of all, let me just say I had a 780 credit score when I started my business. And that's kind of unheard of when you start a small business. So I paid my bills. I had a great savings account. I had $375,000 in the bank. I took all my savings and I put it toward my business. But where the nose came in was after that very first loan that I received through the business banker. My debt to income ratio went up because every small business owner, when they first start, they have to put everything in their name. They have to co-sign on the credit. So it wasn't necessarily that I was a bad credit risk. I just had business and personal on my personal credit. So they were saying, oh, your debt to income ratio was out of whack, so we couldn't approve you. I also feel that there was a bias in there. A Black female business owner, they don't do well. And this is something that is a continual occurrence. So I don't want anybody out there to get misconceived that I solved the business, the lending industry issue. Black women and Black people in business still have a problem with getting loans. And that's something because of the restrictions and the guidelines that I'll address at a later date if you like me to come back on that.
Sure,
but,
absolutely.
For me, I think I might have been at that point, maybe a few years in, and I went into a bank and I was going to buy a building, and I gave the banker my information and all my account stuff, and have your paperwork together. That's one thing I have to say about Black people in business. Please go to a professional accountant, have your paperwork together. So when you go in there, your stuff is tight, because they look at us harder than they do other folks.
Absolutely.
So I go inside and I give him my paperwork, and the guy looks at me and he holds my paperwork up and he goes, I've been in banking 30 years. I never seen a Black female business, single owner do this. I looked at him and I was just shocked. I was like, well, what does that mean? He said, you're a unicorn. Man, when he said that, I was so offended because
yeah. How does he know that? How many Black women businesses have he spoken to? So
I said, man, I'm no Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, right? I just manage money really well. But the fact that he said that, I took offense to it, even though he said it was a compliment. It meant to me that this man who had been in business for 30 years in banking was not confident in the fact that Black people could have an EBITDA like mine.
Right.
And that was offensive to me. The second thing I'll have to tell you is that I got so used to people telling me no, that when people said yes, my face was like,
what?
We're like, we said yes. Oh, you said yes. So it was like that type of thing every time. But as I got further along in the process, I realized that these biases that were there, I could circumvent them and many times overcome them by having strong financials. And people, make sure that you pay your bills on time. Your credit score may drop because your debt to income ratio is higher, but do not pay your stuff late. And if we all have been there. Look, I skipped paychecks to make sure I made my people's payroll. I was one of those entrepreneurs that I'm dependent on when the insurance company decides to pay me. And so it ain't for a matter of not managing money that I ran into these cash crunches. It was that my insurance payables was 120 days out, right, 90 days out. And so when you're dealing with, and at that time, that was prior to COVID, I had probably around 345 nurses working. So my payroll was roughly somewhere around the neighborhood of $400,000 every other week. Right. And so when you're having a payroll of that amount and somebody is taking 90 and 120 days to pay you, you do realize that you're going to have a cash flow problem.
Right.
So I think that the biggest thing that we do to ourselves as new startups and entrepreneurs is we play mind games on ourselves. We like, oh yeah, I'm going to get into business, and because I really like what I'm doing, I'm not going to have any bumps in the road. And then you have those few bumps the first few years, and all of a sudden things straighten out, and you're flying right, and you think, I'm never going to have a problem again. And that's just, but it's just not realistic. And I hear it all the time. So in my chapter of the book, I try to give people as real as I can what I went through, and just to give them a realistic expectation. You need to manage your expectations of yourself, and just understand that, you know, nothing is going to be perfect. And even now, 20 years in, look, COVID hit, and nothing is perfect. And so if I could impart anything to you, it's just that stop trying to be a perfectionist, run your business, love on yourself, take time for yourself. And as you grow in what you love, remember that you have to know your value. You have to know your worth. You have to know that just because somebody else thinks that that's your limit doesn't mean that's your limit, because I've blown through those limits many a times.
Many times.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, you actually answered my last two questions for you. Which is amazing. All right. You asked the question about what did you want to leave people with, and what do you want people to understand coming from the book? And you did a masterful job of making sure that people understood this is real talk. You know, real talk. If you want to really hear what you were feeling, sounds like you wrote it. You know, which is very, very cool. And I really applaud both of you two entrepreneurs for that, by bearing yourself out there, leaving yourself bare like that because you're going to help somebody else. You're going to help somebody to either navigate through this difficult thing of owning a business, or you're going to keep them in corporate America so they can feed their families. You know, and either one of those works. You know, either one of those works. You know. So, you know, with that, I want to just say that this concludes our second installment of the business of Black business. And I really want to thank you guys. You guys are amazing. And we went well over our time, but I got to tell you, I'm going to beg for forgiveness versus, begging for for permission, because I think that we owe it to people to have folks like you that are willing to spend their time to do this, to share that knowledge. Thanks for Legacy Magazine and Aaliyah. You guys are amazing. Thanks for making this is important. I just don't know where the heck you guys were, 15, 20 years ago when I was doing this. And I was starting my business. I needed this and didn't necessarily have it. So, and the parting thing is, Dr. Merritt, we want to talk a little bit about where they can find your book. No Glory Without a Story. It's available on September 18th, but I don't know if your microphone is still open. Why don't you tell the viewing audience where they might be able to find this book?
Okay, yes, absolutely. And just one correction, it's not my book.
Yeah.
I didn't write. I don't have one chapter in that book.
I'm so sorry. Thank you.
It is their book, but the book can be found on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and then you'll be able to find it on other little bookstores. But if they just go to Amazon and type in No Glory Without a Story Edition 3, they can just type in No Glory Without a Story, and then it'll come up Amazon or Barnes and Noble. They can just Google it and they'll find it. It's very easy to find. It was available on September 18th, and they can purchase it anytime from today on. They can purchase the book from Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
Perfect. And I got to tell you that certainly there are a number of people on there that I know that I can call them Black superstars within our community, and people that I basically have watched and paid really close attention to not only what they do in their professional lives, but how they give back to the community. And I pattern myself after that. I think that it's hugely important. Every one of those people in your book are players within our community, and basically take the time to reach back with their dominant hand, their right hand, that pull the person up behind them. And so I applaud the work that you did, just collecting it and putting it out there for everybody. Dr. Sharief and Marie, you guys are my heroes. Thank you very much for all you do. And I want to finally, I need to thank the sponsors, the Mesman and Dover Accident Insurers. We actually had him on last week. Amazing guy, amazing practice. Thank you for basically being a sponsor of this our talk show, as well as the Florida Lottery. So that concludes number 2. On to number 3. Same time, same station. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and you have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.